Hello everyone and welcome to It's Just Racing, hosted by Jim and Jim. I'm Jim.
And I'm Jim.
And we're here to talk about racing. We're going to start off with Supercross. Supercross was in Philadelphia this week. It was a 250 East-West showdown. So the 250 West heat, Cole Davies grabbed the lead right away. Held on until Hayden Deegan took the top spot with 2 laps to go, and Danger Boy Deegan won. In the 250 East heat race, Seth Hammaker led the whole thing from the gate drop to the checkers. Tom Vial wrecked himself out of second and ended up having to run in the LCQ. In the 250 LCQ, Gavin Towers won. And the 250 main event, Seth Hammaker grabbed the whole shot and held the lead until a red flag for Daxton Bennick. He was down and didn't look good, did it?
No, it didn't.
Did we ever find out what happened?
We did. He had a concussion and he was unconscious on the track for a while.
That's his second one of the year, too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not good to see.
Young guy, but got to take care of that noggin. So since it was early enough in the race, they had to do a full restart, which wiped out Seth Hammaker's lead. RJ Hampshire, I always say that wrong, got the whole shot. Cole Davies grabbed the lead about 5 minutes in and pulled away. Hayden Deegan made a valiant effort. He reeled him in at the end, but Davies held on for the win. The podium was Cole Davies, Hayden Deegan, and RJ Hampshire in third.
No, I was really impressed with how Cole Davies was riding, because he was behind Deegan and Hampshire and all those guys, and he started taking alternate lines and finding a way around them, and he was really riding much more mature than a 17-year-old.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a rough track. It wasn't too bad. The rain stopped soon enough, but it did get rutted up, and Cole was, like you said, using some alternate lanes, and it definitely worked for him.
And now, didn't he get his first win in the previous race?
I think so. It was either a week or two ago, yeah.
Yeah, so he's really turning it on. He's up to second in the championship.
He is. That 17-year-old New Zealander is in second in the points. Speaking about the points, the 250 East points, we've got RJ Hampshire and Seth Hammaker tied, and Tom Vial is 2 behind. Chance Hymas is also still in the running, down 14 points. So that is the championship to watch this year for sure.
I mean, that's wide open. We don't know what's going to happen next.
And then in the 250 West, we've got Hayden Deegan leading Cole Davies by 17, and his arch nemesis Julian Juju Beaumaire is 26 points behind. So that's pretty much up for Deegan to lose it. Otherwise, it's his championship, in my opinion. And Cole Davies, if he keeps winning and Deegan finishes, third every week, I guess maybe there's a chance. But Deegan's just gotta keep going. In the 450 heat race, Cooper Webb got the whole shot, and Aaron Plessinger, who normally gets the whole shot and fades, passed someone, and he got by Cooper Webb and got the heat race win.
He's got some confidence carrying over from last week, I guess.
He's had a good month, I'd say. He had about 3 podiums in a row, and now he wins this heat race. In 450 heat race number 2, Justin Cooper with the whole shot led the entire race, and he got stuck in one of the aforementioned ruts behind a lap rider on the last lap. And Chase Sexton, he did like Cole Davies. He went where the leader wasn't, and he grabbed the win on the last lap there.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for Cooper. There wasn't really anything he could have done to predict that. It was the main line, and the lapper just had a problem with how deep the rut was, and Cooper was too far in it by that point.
Probably got his peg stuck or something on the side. Those ruts were getting pretty gnarly, as Ricky Carmichael would say. On the 450 LCQ, Grant Harlan won. Moving on to the 450 main event, big crash in the first turn. Shane McElrath, Justin Cooper, Aaron Plessinger, And Teen Wilson in his first race back. He's been sitting on the sidelines, and Honda decided, hey, both of our Australian drivers are out. We have nobody riding. We're going to hire some 30-year-old guy from Scotland or whatever to come out. And he wrecked on the first lap. Anyhow, bummer for Plessinger too, with his streak that we were just talking about. He got caught up in that. I think he came back, finished 9th or 10th, but it definitely didn't help him wrecking out there.
Yeah, you could tell he was upset right afterwards. He thought he had a real chance to win this race.
He had a good podium, at least, I'd say. So Justin Barcia actually got the whole shot, and then he quickly wrecked himself out of the lead.
It looked like he just forgot where the turn was. He just kept going straight.
He just went straight off the track. It was amusing. Feel bad for Bam Bam, but whatever. Ken Roczen inherited the lead, and I think old age and injuries, they're catching up to Kenny. Got the lead and then got passed by Sexton, then got passed by Cooper Webb. Did hang on for third, so the podium was Chase Sexton, Cooper Webb, and Ken Roczen in third. Bringing us to the 450 points. Cooper Webb is still your points leader. Sexton is 12 down, and Ken Roczen is 38 points down. He's pretty much out of it. It's just Webb and Sexton from here on out, unless something crazy happens, which often is the case in Supercross.
I mean, Webb and Sexton have both been at the top of their game lately, so we should have a nice battle between them.
Ever since they had that week off, Sexton got his head screwed on, and he hasn't been making Sexton-like mistakes, so it's good to see the top riders at the top of their game.
Now, before we go on to four wheels, I have a note from the MotoGP race. I believe they were in Qatar last weekend. Marc Marquez won again. But the note was Maverick Vinales, one of the rare non-Ducati riders. Almost everyone over there is on a Ducati because that's the best bike. But Maverick Vinales, he finished second, but was disqualified. Tire pressures were too low. And now that sounds like, it was a pretty easy thing. They were just cheating, having too low tire pressures, trying to get more grip, more acceleration. But I was reading the rules, and I think you'll find this interesting.
Ooh, I love a good rule book reading.
Because they don't check the tire pressures at the start of the race.
Okay.
They've got sensors that tell them what the tire pressure is every lap, and they have to meet the minimum, whatever their minimum tire pressure number is, for 60% of the laps. Which the reason that is a lot of the teams, they like to have them real low.
Start them off low and let the pressures build.
But so for some reason, MotoGP, they don't just say this is what they have to be at the beginning. They make the teams kind of guess what they're going to build up to. And if you guess wrong and, your tire pressures were only at the minimum for 58% of the laps, you're disqualified. So it just seems complicated to me.
Well, that's a bummer for him. But hey, it wouldn't be racing if it wasn't complicated and convoluted. Gotta have your rule book 47 chapters long, and that's racing nowadays. Not like the old days. A NASCAR didn't even have to wear a helmet.
Speaking of NASCAR, where were they this weekend?
I don't remember. Where were they?
I didn't watch it. Was it Bristol?
Yeah. They were at Bristol. The Coliseum. NASCAR trucks. Daniel Hemrick was on the pole. Led the first handful of laps, and Chandler Smith took over and won the first stage. Smith also led most of the second stage till Bailey Curry got by him and collected his first stage win. Start off stage 3, Rajah Caruth grabbed the lead till Corey Heim got by him. It was a good battle in the top 4 until we had a short caution for weather. Weather likes to pop up at NASCAR races. Corey Heim and Chandler Smith were side by side after the little delay there. Bummer for Bailey Curry on the restart. His transmission failed. He was running third and just dropped through the field. He was done for done for the night. Chandler Smith ended up with the win. Kyle Larson, who shouldn't have been racing, but I won't bring that up again, was second, and Corey Heim finished third.
Next up, we've got IMSA. IMSA was racing on Saturday at the Long Beach Street Circuit over in California. It was their third race of the season and the first non-endurance race. This was one of the shorter ones, just an hour and 40 minutes. So what that means is that the driver lineups, you only brought 2 drivers instead of the 3 or 4 that we've seen earlier this year. BMW, their hypercars, they qualify really well. They qualified first and second. Dries Vanthoor, he's been on pole position at all of the first 3 races. So he's been very impressive in his raw pace in the qualifying lap. Moving on to the race, there was one note. Robert Wickens, it was his first race in the top tier of IMSA racing. And so that was exciting to see. He's in one of the customer Corvettes, the DXDT team, alongside Tommy Milner.
Now, I believe I heard today that he's going to be running one of the 24-hour races next year.
Really? I didn't hear that, but that would be exciting.
I believe for Hyundai. So that'd be what, Brian Herta probably, who's the one who really got him back into racing. They're going to be running one of the 24-hour races. He's going to be in it. Driver changes are going to be difficult, but I'm sure they'll get it figured out.
Well, they managed it pretty well during this race. I mean, it was only the one driver change. They had him start in the car, probably so they could get him, all set up and comfortable in it. And it went pretty smoothly from what I saw.
For those of you who don't know, Robert Wickens is paralyzed from an Indy crash, I believe it was.
Yeah, back at Pocono in 2018.
So he's got no use of his legs. Everything's hand controls. So that's why it's a notable thing for those of you who aren't as deep into the weeds as some of us.
Man, he's still fast. He's still got it.
He is. It's good to see.
Moving on to the racing action. The BMWs, they led early until a caution. It was one of the Corvettes, a different Corvette, got stuck in one of those tire barriers that they've got. He had some help. I forget who the driver of it was. But Misha Goikberg in the Forte Lamborghini just sent it into a corner from pretty far back and came off the apex. He was carrying too much speed, and there's not enough room for 2 cars to go side by side when one of them misses the apex. And so that they had to extract that Corvette from the tire wall. During that caution, the Porsche hypercars took the lead.
Imagine that.
Yeah, the Porsche Penske, it's a familiar sight at the top. While they got the lead, we went back racing. There was one other caution. The customer Porsche, the bright yellow number 85, spun and left some debris on the track. Jimmy Bruni was driving it. He's normally a pretty good driver, but he made, I don't know what he was thinking. He just turned himself across a GT car. It wasn't even close. They were like side by side, and he just turned in like the GT wasn't there. So not a very smart move. His whole rear wing fell off, and that was just sitting on the track, so they had to wave the yellow to go pick that up.
Souvenir for somebody.
Yeah, big souvenir. Hang it on the wall, I guess. After that, the rest of the race, which was pretty short, was clean. And it was a Porsche Penske 1-2 finish yet again.
Is that every race this year?
Yeah, they've been perfect so far. You can dream of a better season if you're Porsche Penske.
Yeah, Roger's got something going on there.
Over on the GT side, it was just the one GT class because the street circuit is pretty tight. You don't have room for the full field. So it was just the GT amateurs.
Oh, the amateurs. So the guys who don't know how to drive race cars?
So Rexy won, which you may be thinking now Rexy is a GT Pro car, but they brought a different driver lineup. However, their driver lineup, it was Johnny Edgar, so congratulations to him. It was his first win in IMSA. And Lawrence Vanthoor.
Wait, I know that name.
Yeah, you do. Perhaps because he is the third driver for Porsche Penske. He was with the team that won Daytona and Sebring this year, and he won the championship in the World Endurance Championship last year.
But he's an amateur?
I don't know what the system IMSA has for that, but I feel like they should, I don't know.
Change it because it's ridiculous? Because that guy's obviously not an amateur.
Yeah, he's one of the best endurance drivers in the world. I don't know why he's allowed to run in the amateur class.
That's kind of like Kyle Larson running in trucks and Xfinity.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. All right. Well, moving on to Xfinity. Kyle Larson was on the pole after finishing second in the truck race the night before.
He just wants that sweep, I guess.
Well, I actually heard a quote from him. My friend Kevin Harvick, he's also got a podcast.
Yeah?
Yeah, he talks about racing too. It's pretty good. You should listen to it sometime. He was talking to Kevin Harvick, and Harvick pretty much asked him, why do you go down there and race all the time? And he said, because I want to humble these kids and embarrass them. He said, they think they're doing good, and I want to show them they have a lot of improvement to make. Well, he did that. Kyle Larson started on the pole in Xfinity. In the first 75 laps, he had already lapped up to 14th place. Ugly wreck. Dean Thompson got into Sheldon Creed, spun him. Creed was stopped on the track for a couple seconds and then just got pounded by Brennan Poole. Poole came off the corner, saw him a little too late, had the car locked up, slid it sideways. Tore the whole rear end out of the car, axle and everything bouncing down the track. So there's a red flag for cleanup. Both drivers climbed out. They were fine. Brennan Poole got the wind knocked out of him, which is probably the best thing that can happen in a wreck like that because it was pretty ugly. Everybody pitted except Sam Mayer and Ryan Sieg. There were only 3 laps to go on the restart before the end of the stage, and Mayer and Sieg held on for first and second, so their strategy worked. They got some stage points, which they need to try to stay up there in today's NASCAR points. Stage 2, Kyle Larson led from green to checkers, lapped all the way up to 12th in that stage. And stage 3, Justin Allgaier actually got the lead at the start. And I have to say it, I love Kyle Larson, but it was a bullshit move. He pounded Allgaier, moved him up off the track to get the lead back. You don't need to do that. You're not supposed to be running in this series. You don't need to move the guy when you're that much faster than him anyway.
Just to note, Allgaier is probably one of the only people who's not the kid that he's trying to humble. He's like, 7 years older?
He's like 40 years old. But still, Allgaier's running for points in the series, and Larson's just trying to embarrass people. And doing a good job of it. Larson easily won the race. There was some good racing, 6th to 12th, the last half of the field on the lead lap, but so Kyle Larson once again got a second, a first, and a first on the weekend.
Moving over to Bahrain, Formula One was racing. They were in Bahrain.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I always thought Bahrain was a city, and I always wondered what country it was. And then I looked it up, and it's not a city, it's its own country.
You learn something new every day.
I didn't do good in geometry class.
In qualifying, there were a few interesting things. We should probably talk about Nico Hulkenberg. His lap time got deleted for track limits.
Oh, that was garbage.
He made it to Q2 and then was out in Q2 because the Saubers got no speed. But then during Q3, like the middle of Q3, they announced that they deleted his lap time and promoted Alex Albon to 15th.
But Albon didn't get to run Q2 because it wasn't until Q1 that they decided that in Q3, Hulkenberg got his time deleted. It probably didn't change much, but
if you're Albon, you want that chance
right
to run in Q2. Especially because Esteban Ocon had a big crash in Q2. And so he, instead of starting 15th, he got to start 14th with the Hulkenberg lap time deleted. And so Albon would have been at least 2 positions higher.
Yeah.
So he was probably a little upset about that, understandably so. Both Mercedes cars received 1-place grid penalties after qualifying because they came out of the garage too early. After that was cleaned up, it was like 10 seconds too early, which they were debating whether or not the announcers were whether it would be a grid penalty or just a fine for the team. In the end, I guess I can see how it was a grid penalty because you get out there with clean air and that's a big advantage to put in the first lap. What that did was it promoted Charles Leclerc to a front row start, even though he originally had qualified P3, as George Russell was demoted 1 spot. But it was Oscar Piastri who set the fastest time. He was on pole position, coming off his first win of the season last week. Notably, the Red Bulls were really slow. I mean, you expect that from the second Red Bull, but Max he wasn't able to find any pace in it either.
Didn't he qualify like 7th or something?
Yeah, he was behind Pierre Gasly, I know.
And when you're behind a French car,
yeah,
that's no good.
Lando Norris was also pretty slow in qualifying. He only qualified 6th, which I know he denies that the McLaren is the fastest car, but you should be better than 6th in the McLaren of this year. Moving on to the race on Sunday, Lando got a really good start, too good in fact. He jumped up 3 spots in the first turn and a half, and he got a 5-second penalty for a false start because he started ahead of his grid box.
It was very obvious too. It wasn't just a hair. He was a good couple feet out of his box.
So you could see on Max's in-car camera, you could see him moving forward after he was set in the box.
And you could hear Max say, "Lando's lined up out of the box."
Yeah. So that was a pretty slam dunk penalty. The 5 seconds. It was luckily Pirelli must have listened to us last week. The tires, there was more degradation this week. It made for a lot better racing. So that was nice to see. It was not difficult to stay awake this week.
No, it was a fun race. You know, it was good when there's strategy and pit stops and things like that. And unless you're Red Bull, then it's not good to have pit stops this week.
Well, before we get into that, there were a couple teams who they tried different strategies. Haas pulled the early undercut with both cars, and that really helped them out. Ocon, starting from 14th, was the first to pit, and he jumped up to like 7th or 8th. And Ollie Behrman, starting from 20th, he moved way up there. I think he should have been driver of the day, but we'll talk about that a little later. Ferrari, they decided to go long on the first stint. They were going to try to make it on 1 fewer pit stop than everyone else. Unfortunately, there was a safety car that came out for some debris, and that kind of ruined their strategy. They had been running 1-2 for a little bit before that, though. So the Ferrari strategy this time was actually good, which is quite rare.
Quite a turnaround, and they had a new floor this week, so I was waiting to see how that was going to work, testing out that new floor, and it didn't seem to change anything.
But now the Red Bull, the pit drama, they've got a light. You have to wait for the light to turn green after they drop the car, like for safety reasons. Or I think it was someone complained a couple of years ago because their pit stops were too fast.
Well, what happened is when the tire changers got the wheel on, he presses a button. And so when all 4 buttons are pressed, then the light turns green automatically. It senses the 4 inputs.
Well,
or it's supposed
to. The light did not turn green for Red Bull. And so that cost them probably, 4 seconds for all of their
3.5 or 4 seconds just for Max.
Because Max, he went, and then he saw it was red, and he stopped again, and he waited for like another second or 2, and then he went again. It was a mess. It lost him. He really needed that time. Stuck in the midfield. He was behind Ocon for a long time. That did not help at all.
And then they had an issue with the right front tire on his second pit stop, didn't they? They couldn't get it off.
Yeah, so the Red Bull pit stops were not their usual speed.
They were not Red Bullish at all.
With the safety car, one other person who got caught out by that was Kimi Antonelli. He had just made a pit stop, and the safety car, everybody pitted for the cheap stop, and so that forced him to pit in extra time, and so he lost probably 5 or 6 spots from where he would have finished. So that was too bad for Kimi. It was lucky for some of those other midfield teams that were able to jump above him. In the end, Oscar Piastri was able to win. He kind of sailed away from everything that happened behind him. You had some great battles. Charles Leclerc was holding off Lando for a number of laps.
Oh, he had some really old tires too, didn't he?
Yeah. I think Lando, he just looked really impatient. He was, locking up the tires, trying to go around the outside in turn one. I feel like he should have been more patient, and he would have saved his tires and got around quicker.
So he could learn from Oscar.
Young
Oscar could teach him some patience.
Once he did get around Charles finally, he tried to hunt down George Russell, who was dealing with problems of his own. George had, I don't know, it was like the entire electrical system with the car was going wrong.
You wouldn't think that from a Mercedes. Yeah, maybe something Italian. You have your electrical problems, or perhaps a British car even. But Mercedes are not supposed to have all kinds of myriad of electrical issues.
Well, for about the whole race, nobody knew the time intervals between George Russell because his transponder wasn't working right. I saw a little track map afterwards where it showed like all the cars on track, and it showed him like way off in the ocean or something. It was kind of funny.
They have oceans in Bahrain?
Well, it's right on the coast of whatever sea is there.
Oh, okay. The Bahrainian Sea?
Sure,
okay.
We'll go with that. But then later on in the race, George was having problems with the DRS, where it wouldn't open, or they told him he could only open it manually. And then at one point, it opened when it wasn't supposed to. Later, we found out he pressed the radio button to talk to his team, and the DRS opened. So that was kind of weird.
Maybe he had a mouse under the dashboard eating wires.
I did see, as a note, that also happened to Charles Leclerc.
Oh, yeah?
In the middle of a turn, it opened just randomly, which in a turn is not a good place to have DRS open. Just ask Jack Doohan.
Yeah, he tried that last week, didn't he?
Charles was able to keep it going, though, so that was good for him. But then George, the last couple laps, Lando was catching him. He put on a really good defense, a very stout defense. Lando again tried to pass him around the outside. George pushed him a little wide. It was a clean move. He had the spot. Lando was a little optimistic trying to get it. Just a little bit.
A little optimistic. He was yelling on the radio. I was next to him. I was right next to him, wheel to wheel. He wasn't even right front to left rear.
There was just the tiniest overlap. But George, after the race, he was able to hang on for a P2 finish. Lando rounded out the podium. Afterwards, George said he was also having problems with the brake-by-wire system, where one lap the pedal would be really soft and the next lap would be hard, so he didn't really know what was going to happen. So that's impressive that he was able to manage that.
Not a good feeling in a race car, and I've never gone that fast.
Yeah, I mean, he is a real good driver to be able to handle that changing condition with something like the brake pedal.
Especially when you got somebody like Lando breathing down your neck.
Yeah. A few other notable finishes. Pierre Gasly was able to bring home the first points of the season for Alpine with a 7th place finish. Ollie Behrman worked his way all the way up to 10th from starting last. So he got a point, but not
he
driver
passed
of the day.
half the cars, and he didn't get driver of the day?
No, they gave it to Lewis.
It's a good thing they don't give points for driver of the day, because it's just a goofy fan popularity contest.
The only DNF of the race was Carlos Sainz, who retired after he got a lot of side pod damage. I think he was hit by Liam Lawson.
Didn't he hit everybody?
Yeah, Liam Lawson had like 15 seconds of penalties for causing collisions. He got a couple penalty points. He's got more penalty points than actual points. That's because he has 0 actual points. But
oh, Liam's got to get his head on straight, or he's going to get fired from his second ride this year.
Yeah, he was just, it was the same corner, like the same kind of dive bomb move both times, where it's just, he was like, I'm at the apex first, give me the spot. And that's not how it works. You've got to make the corner.
That might work in street stocks, not in Formula One.
No.
And that was the caution, right?
Yeah,
With
from
some
the
of
Carlos Sainz damage.
Right.
Post-race, Nico Hulkenberg was disqualified for a skid plate. It was worn everywhere they measure it.
Skid plate. I'm not going to go on my skid plate rant again. They're the stupidest thing ever. Get rid of the skid plates and just have a minimum height.
Okay, Jacques. So what that does for the points, after 4 races, Lando Norris is still your points leader. Oscar is 3 behind him, and Max is in 3rd place, 8 points behind.
I'm surprised Max is that high up.
I mean, he's still the best.
He is the best, but the car is subpar.
The last note I had about Formula One is that every team has points now. Alpine was the last one, and they are tied with Sauber with 6 points.
That's good to see. I like it when everybody has points. You show up every weekend, you got to have something to show for it. Unlike Sauber last year, right? Didn't they have 0 points last year?
They got points with like 2 races left.
Oh, okay. Crazy. All right. Moving on to the Cup race. Not the Winston Cup. Not the Monster Energy Cup.
Not the Sprint Cup.
Not the Nextel Cup. Just the Cup race. Alex Bowman was on the pole. Guess who got the lead around lap 40?
I'm going to go with Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson grabbed the lead and held on to win the caution-free stage. Larson still led in stage 2. Only incident, Shane Van Gisbergen got loose, collected Cody Ware. What's up with Shane Van Gisbergen?
I mean, I guess he hasn't figured out the roundy rounds.
It's been over a year. He spent all last year in Xfinity, and now we're, 7, 8 races into Winston Cup. There I go again. I'm an old man.
Remember
back when
Lightning
tobacco.
McQueen would say, it's just an empty cup.
It is just an empty cup. It's just cup. But for being an older fella, I would think that he would have been able to figure out how to drive an oval by now.
Well, his Trackhouse teammates have also been struggling this year, isn't that right?
Trackhouse has been pathetic this year. Sorry, Trackhouse. I love you guys. But, man, they've been really bad. I mean, I think Chastain pulled out a top 10 somehow this week, but I think SVG and Suarez were probably in the 30s. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they need to go back to a 2-man team. 3's too much to handle.
You don't want to spread those resources too thin.
No. But anyway, that was the caution. Kyle Larson won the race off of pit road and led the rest of the laps to win stage 2. And Kyle Larson led every lap of the 3rd stage other than during the green flag pit cycle and won the race. Everybody's crying and whining. This was so boring. It was a lame race. There were no crashes. This was way better racing than Richmond, in my opinion. The trucks, Xfinity, Cup, there was no smashing people to move them out of the way. There was no stupidity. This is a smaller track than Richmond is. I liked it. I like seeing guys see how many cars they can lap. I like having no cautions. I guess I like boring races, but
now you sound like me.
That was it was a good race. I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot better. I turned off Richmond last week, and I actually watched because this was better racing this week.
Speaking of good racing, the last race of the weekend was Indycar. They were also at the Long Beach Street Circuit, racing on Sunday. Just a side note, that would be a really fun race weekend to go to.
Think so?
Yeah, I mean, IMSA, IndyCar, they had Stadium Super Trucks there, and they had a GT series. It would be a good week of racing for a street circuit.
I know a young accountant who could take his dad and co-host. Oh wait, you couldn't. It's tax week.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. There's no vacation in the middle of April for us.
But hey, at least we could watch the IndyCar race on TV.
We sure could on Fox.
This week, the soft tires, you might remember they were really good at the last race at Thermal Club. This week, they were really bad.
They were really, really, really bad.
Joseph Newgarden pitted after 2 laps because he couldn't stand them anymore. The soft tires, they were not good.
That was a good move for him, too.
Yeah, it gained him a lot of spots from a bad starting spot. So you had a split strategy race between the guys who started on the softs and had to dump them really early, and the guys who were on hard tires and tried to keep those on as long as possible. The top guys on the soft tire starting strategy were Alex Palou, Kyle Kirkwood, and Felix Rosenquist. And the ones who were going long in the first stint were Christian Lundgaard, Scott Dixon, and Stingray Robb.
I've heard of that guy.
Most people don't hear of him during the race, but this race we will hear about him. The alternate strategy looked like it was pretty good. It wasn't the winning strategy. Kirkwood kept cycling back to the lead. There was a 3-stopper for everybody, I think. But it helped Lundgaard. It really helped Stingray Robb. I feel like Stingray Robb had the best strategy, but then the team played it too safe with the last stops.
I agree with you there. I think that he probably could have finished in the top 3, if not get a win, if they would have just held tight and not got nervous.
I think he would have had 5th place for sure. The top 3 were real good, but I think he could have been at least 5th. He ended up 9th. His strategy, they went to the soft tires for a stint. It was like lap 54, and they ran like 10 laps on him. What I would have done is run the hard tires until there were like 7 or 8 laps to go in the race, because he led like 12 laps. He was running.
He was doing really good. His lap times were up there with everybody else. Even on old hard tires, he was running, within a 1/10 of the fast guys. He was there this week.
Well, and that's the thing with the street circuits. It was really important to have clean air, because if you're stuck behind people, you're losing so much time. So he really impressed when he was running in the lead. But the team pulled him in, trying to be safe, and he ended up in 9th place, which it ties his career best. I just can't help thinking that he could have had a lot more.
Yeah, they left some positions on the table there, but I can see where they're coming from, just trying to get him a top 10, get him a decent finish, but there was more there that could have been had.
So at the end, it was Kyle Kirkwood who was able to win the race from pole position. Notably, that is his 3rd win in his career. All 3 have been on street circuits, and all 3 were from pole position.
And I learned something this weekend. He has nothing to do with Costco. That's Kirkland, not Kirkwood.
So he was able to break Alex Palou's perfect start to the season. Palou had won the first 2 races. He only finished 2nd in this one. So he's obviously the points leader.
What, do you think he Kyle Larson or something?
No, not quite. Although they both have raced for McLaren in Indy before.
That is true.
And Christian Lundgaard rounded out the podium, the current McLaren driver from Denmark. He's been pretty good this year. There were no yellow flags. It went caution-free. Another race that went caution-free. The IndyCar season, there's been 1 caution, and it was on lap 1 of race 1. And since then, it's been green all the way.
See, and that makes it, for me, more interesting, because you have to have the strategies and the tire management and the undercut versus overcut and thinking, and especially with the alternate tires. And that's more exciting to me than seeing a dude hit another dude and then they go yell at each other in the pits. I don't know. Anyway, so that was a good race. So next week, we've got Supercross in New Jersey. The trucks and Xfinity are at Rockingham. F1 is in Saudi Arabia, I believe?
At the Jeddah Street Circuit.
Jeddah, that's right. Return of the Jeddah. The old Star Wars track there in Saudi Arabia. And I guess a personal note for me, it's nice to see the Cup Series off on Easter again. That's how it always was. The old saying was nobody should die on Easter or Mother's Day. And they got away from that. But the Cup Series is off this Sunday.
One race to watch this Sunday when you're not watching the Cup race. Not IMSA, the European version of IMSA, the World Endurance Championship.
The WEC?
The WEC. They're back for their second race of the season. It's the 6 hours of Imola. It's Ferrari's home race. It's right by Maranello, right there in Imola and Emilia Romagna. It's at the Formula One track there. So Ferrari, they're looking to double up. They had their podium sweep in the first race. They're going to try to do that again at home. A couple notes. The WEC, they update the balance of performance, or the BOP, after every race. So they adjust the cars to make it more even. It produces some good racing. So the notes about that, the Ferrari, they've made it 8 kilograms heavier. So it's like 17 and a half pounds.
Can you say that in American?
It's like 17 and a half pounds. Cadillac, they are 11 kilograms heavier. So that's like 24 pounds, a little more than that. Porsche, they've been allowed to reduce their weight by 24 pounds. And Alpine has been given an additional 14 horsepower they can use their hybrid unit for.
So they're gonna let the Frenchies try harder?
Yeah, because they're pretty slow.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.